LaCour from hook'emheadlines.com. We are coming back at y'all today with kind of part two of our depth chart breakdown, looking position by position on both sides of the ball for Texas. It was a couple of weeks ago that we did our offensive video, and like I said, we're going to be taking a look at the defensive side of the ball here today. Yesterday, I posted a video that was the most improved players for the Longhorns coming out of spring ball. Tarik, just to kind of catch you up there, I was looking at like under and upperclassmen separately. You've been with us for a couple of videos now, but we haven't talked very much in depth about the defense post spring ball. We've had a month to sit on, thoughts coming out of spring now. How are you feeling about the defense heading into the summer?
I think that they're taking good steps forward. I think this is going to be a very fast, physical defense. They're going to be faster than last year because I think they have just more speed at linebacker and at just all over the defensive backfield with additions of Catalan and Holmes and Brooks. I think is really fast too. I think that PK is going to have to be very experimental with this defense to get some of the things that he wants out of it. I still think that Anthony Hill may best start off as kind of a pass rusher on a lot of downs and maybe sharing that with Ethan Burke. I think Barron Sorrell is already kind of a star, an underrated star, but love to see what he can do there. And with the DBs, I think that PK and Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon need to just get the five best on the field at all times. So if that means, moving a guy like Terrence Brooks or Ryan Watts to safety, or moving Jahdae Barron to corner and moving another guy somewhere else, moving another guy to star, making sure you're getting your best five out there, because I think Texas needs to force more turnovers this year. I've been doing some rewatch, maybe we'll do a series on that over the summer, kind of rewatching all the games from last year. But what struck me last year was Texas had a lot of opportunities to make a lot of turnovers and just didn't get them. Like so many forced fumbles that they didn't get, so many near interceptions that weren't caught. And so you get those and you're having a very different discussion. You might be having a 9-3 or 10-2 season instead of an 8-4 season. So, but by and large, I like where we are on defense. I think I'm very excited to see what Raptor and why am I forgetting it? Warren Roberson and Jelani McDonald. I think all three of those guys are going to be really good. So excited to see what they bring to the fold. I'm sure you saw that Cedric Griffin over the weekend tweeted out that he really likes what Jelani McDonald brings to the field. And I think he also said something similar about Derek Williams. So that's very good. Like I said, I think the athleticism and speed of the defense is getting up to the kind of level we're going to need in the SEC, and it will help us in the Big 12, trying to win the Big 12. But obviously for PK, he's got to get that edge settled, and he's got to figure out who the best five are in the backfield, especially if we're going to play a lot of press quarters this season again. So that's my thought there.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you mentioned Cedric Griffin. Also saw Michael Griffin. I mean, they both were. It sounds like they're both very high on Jelani McDonald, who is, I think, either going to play as more of like a hybrid linebacker or at nickel.
He's going to start at star.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think he's ultimately going to be best served in more of a same linebacker role, but maybe he'll have like a Mo Blackwell type transition down the road. I think he's just more gifted than Blackwell. Yeah, I mean, also you mentioned, I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but Texas had like 5 or 6 dropped interceptions last year, and that's by PFF counts. And like that is twice as much as you'll usually see for any solid Power 5 secondary, which I think Texas was quantifiably a solid Power 5 secondary last season. Not great, but solid. And so some of those I think just have to bounce their way this year. But among some of the summer enrollees, I guess I'll touch on that really quick. And I think Derek Williams is probably going to be the only one that could contribute immediately this fall. I think Roberson's going to take a little bit longer.
Teams, I think.
Yeah. And like, who knows? Maybe McDonald is just a revelation during the summer and fall. I mean, the dude's just a physical freak. Maybe he comes on strong, but I'm hoping he has kind of like a JT Sanders type arc. He is a 5-star caliber talent, man, and I think that next year could be his year to really start making some noise. But yeah, Williams, I know you've talked about that before on special teams. Definitely, prove himself there, and hopefully he's someone that's able to just be a monster in the SEC next fall. So I guess for starting off, looking position by position, we can go ahead and start along the defensive line, which among the top group is one of the strongest position groups that Texas has in the fold this year. We can start at nose. How you feeling about that heading into the summer?
I think Byron Murphy's probably might be the best player on the team, so I'm not worried about that at all. I think he's poised to have a really good year. I'm thankful that you have, I think Sadir Mitchell behind him is going to learn a lot, but I think Sadir Mitchell he's got first round draft potential. I mean, you don't see guys that big who can do that much. And when I saw him do in the spring game, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be a dude. But Byron Murphy, I mean, what he was doing in the spring game, I was just like, okay, it's just not fair. Just take him off. This is embarrassing. So I'm not worried about that at all. I think we're in good shape there. The defensive line, I think it has a really solid 2 deep, but if you get the injury bug there, I get really worried.
I think that's why they brought in Trill Carter, the Minnesota grad transfer. But
I'm interested to see exactly how they use him, because Minnesota is a very different style defense.
Yeah, you got to keep him on a lower snap count, I think. He's someone that kind of, he was effective in short spurts, especially in run defense. But when you cross the threshold of 40 snaps per game for him last season, his defensive grades started to drop pretty dramatically. So,
well, that's a good thing that Bo Davis likes to rotate those guys. So,
yeah, I mean, it knows like Sadir Mitchell. He's going to be one of the players to watch during summer workouts because he needs to carry his weight a little bit better. But he's got another 4 or 5 months to get his body right heading into the fall, another 4 months abouts. And so he's going to have to hit it hard this summer.
I think that the new rule of keeping the clock running is probably going to help the lines of both sides of the side of scrimmage the most.
Do you still think we're more headed to the 2-4-5 transition, or do you still think we're looking at 3 true defensive linemen?
I think we'll play some of both, but I think eventually it's going to be we want to get to the 2-4-5. I think by the time we go to the SEC, that will be more the base. We're certainly still recruiting to that, it looks like. I think, for example, Colin Simmons would be like perfect for a 2-4-5. The guy's perfect for anything, but I mean, guys like Vosick and Burke certainly can play some 3 technique, play maybe some 5. But I agree with that. I think we will see. You can see more of the 2-4-5 with what we have now than what we've had in the past. I think with Sorrell and Burke on both sides, with Murphy and Sweat on the inside, you can certainly do that 2-4-5. So, I guess we're talking about edges. Obviously, Sorrell has one side locked down, and I like Justice Finkley playing behind him. I think that's more of his natural fit. Honestly, it's too bad we don't run a 4-2-5, because I think Justice Finkley would be better served that way. But it is what it is. I think he'll be fine at that buck position. That's what Barron plays. So that's good. I think Barron Sorrell, like I said earlier, is a silent star. The guy gives so much effort, and he gets a lot of pressure. He's really big, and he's really strong, and he just really pushes people back. So you need that. Ethan Burke, I was looking at some pictures of him. he's got some real growing to do in the offseason. I looked at his leg. I was looking at his legs. I was like, who was another great player I remember who had like really small legs, but he was really big? Oh, Vince Young. So, Vince Young didn't have like the biggest calves for a guy his size, but so you definitely need some more size there. I'm interested. Not seeing enough of Jamon Tapp, but we'll see how he goes. And Colton Vasek, obviously lining up besides those guys. Did I miss anybody on the edges? I think that's it.
I think you got it covered. I mean, like I don't.
Oh, I guess you put Anthony Hill in there because he's probably going to play some edge.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you could see some like if there's like a big freshman riser during the summer and fall. I don't know, maybe like a Decilia Connor and Anthony Hill. You could see more of them, but
I think Akana is going to be better off playing like more of an inside, like what's his name? I see a lot of his game being very similar to the Alabama linebacker. He played?
Toto or Henry Toto.
Henry Toto, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see Akana doing a lot of that. I just don't know that Akana is going to get to like 250, 260 and play edge.
Yeah.
He looks like I could see you getting to 230 and playing inside and still keeping your speed and like rushing off the edge, but I just don't see him being an edge.
I would agree. I mean, well, I think is the last camp and combine weigh-in. I know this was last year, but
he was like barely 200 pounds.
205, yeah.
Yeah, that's like Derek Brown.
He did it. I think it was at the All-American Bowl, weighed in around 220. So, and he still is carrying that weight really well. I don't like. I would completely agree with you. I think adding 25 more pounds in a year, that's going to put. He's going to become slower. Other defensive tackle spots right quick because I think Alfred Collins. I think you mentioned him earlier, but he's going to be in the rotation. Vernon Broughton, I think, more in like pass rush situations. I think it is interesting because you got a lot of specialists along this defensive front, right? So you got Justice Binkley, where I think he's going to be more of a standard down type player in the rotation. I don't think you're going to have him in on a whole lot of passing downs when you've got guys like Ethan Burke, even potentially Colton Vasek could see the field a decent bit this year. I think that depends on how his game comes along this like in fall camp. But then you got,
I very much look forward to the days when it's Burke on one side, Vasek on the other. Twin Towers.
I think we could be there next year. But,
we'll
like
see.
you said, Burke still needs to add some size. Burke is closer than Vasek, but he's also been here for a year longer.
But my thing, the thing with Burke versus Vasek is more as a thicker body and it has more of a natural pass rush look, where Burke is so long that you almost have to get to 275 before he looks big.
It's true.
He was at two when he got here. He was at like 245, which is a very large human being, and he looked like a twig. So
yeah. Last thing I was going to say, I think Vernon Broughton could be an interesting pass rush specialist from the interior on clear passing downs. So just something else to watch. But, this is a critical year for Broughton. Like, this has got to be it. It's his fourth year on campus. He was a borderline 5-star recruit. Like, I know that he was more developmental than a lot of people thought he was coming out of high school, myself included. But, yeah. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to add for the edge rushers either. I think you covered it. Ethan Burke and Barron Sorrell are probably the starters heading into fall camp. Linebacker. We mentioned Anthony Hill at the outset. I think he's the starter at Sam heading into the fall. And then, you got Jalen Ford, David Benda. I think Mo Blackwell is also going to be playing a role here. Do you have any contradictions to that?
Nope. That seemed kind of obvious to me. I think Ford, as good as he was last year, I think will be even will be even better this year. I think he will be. It's going to be really critical for him to really set the defense up and make the calls even more than he did, because there's a chance he'll be playing next to a true freshman a large part of the time. Benda, I think, will, he's done better than I was expecting, because if you remember a few videos back, I was like, Benda, I think it's just kind of a wash. But as I was watching the spring game, I kept noticing, like, well, you don't notice him, but he's not like doing anything wrong, if that makes any sense. So
Yep.
that might work for now. I mean, you just need him to be solid. He's not going to be as good as DeMarvin Overshown, who was a third-round pick to my Dallas Cowboys, but as long as you can keep it, as long as you can defend well against the run, and he's really got the thing for Benda is he's got to take on tackles better. He's got to be able to get through the wash and find the ball. That's something Jalen Ford was doing well, and Benda's an interesting case because he's got like a lot of athletic ability, but he doesn't have like any intangible skill that you're saying like, okay, Benda's really good at this. It's like he has the ability to probably do a lot of things, but there's not like one thing I could say like he's really good at this right now. Really special, have a Harold Perkins type of year.
I've heard that a lot lately. Yeah.
The thing with Hill though is they're just going to have to turn him loose. So
it's true, and I mean, I don't think there's going to be much of an issue there. I'll pose this question. 'Cause I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about with the linebackers at this point. The top group: David Benda, Jalen Ford, Anthony Hill. How do you think that stacks up compared to last year's top three of DeMarvin Overshown, Jalen Ford, and Demonte Tucker-Dorsey? Do you feel better or worse?
Worse, but only slightly.
I think the ceiling's higher, the floor's lower.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I think that, and I put Mo Blackwell in there. I think he's going to play more. But,
I agree.
I mean, Tucker Dorsey had played so much that he kind of didn't make mistakes, which is what you would just need. I think Benda and Hill have more potential of being playmakers more so than Dorsey was, because Dorsey was so small. Certainly, if you use Benda and Hill in the right way, I think there's a good chance we will see a lot of dime, getting more defensive backs on the field and trying to like expose the linebackers less, especially if Benda and Hill aren't making the right reads at will.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be critical to have a guy like Jalen Catalon healthy if we're going to be doing more of that, because I think what a lot of people overlook is having a guy like Anthony Cook at nickel or safety the last couple of years. He's good at keeping run plays in front of him. He was also good at closing in on the ball carrier. I think at boundary safety, Catalon's a guy that definitely can make plays and run defense. We've seen that when he's healthy at Arkansas. We can take a look now at corner. You mentioned Ryan Watts at the outset. We talked about the secondary a little bit. We talked about field corner a ton. It's going to be an ongoing battle heading into the fall. How are you feeling about the cornerback situation? You still think it's one of the major strengths of the defense?
Talent-wise, it is. As far as nailing down who plays there, I'm not sure. You could make a really strong case to put Johnny Barron at one of those cornerback spots and moving someone else to star, but Johnny Barron makes so many plays at star, you're very hesitant to do that. But that just shows you how good of a player Johnny Barron is. So probably keep Barron at star. Brooks has All-American high draft potential. Terrence Brooks does. So I'd love to see what he will do there. I wish he'd played more during the Washington game. I still don't understand why they just kept putting Jameson out there. It's kind of like playing Jameson as much as they did and playing Keelan Robinson as much as they did in the Washington game are just baffling personnel moves. But be that as it may. And then Gavin Holmes, I think, is going to be a very important player on passing downs because he can cover really well and nothing gets behind him. Like I say, if you're very convinced that Brooks and Holmes and Barron are among your 5 best defensive backs, then find a way to make sure that they're all on the field. I think Brooks and Barron are flexible enough that they can play safety or corner or star. So find ways to get them in there. And if that means like you put Holmes at corner and you put Barron at star and then Brooks at one of the safeties, maybe in kind of a roving safety along with Catalan.
I think Muhammad, I named him as one of the most improved players this spring because the guy, he got burned a little bit from what I heard in the first couple of weeks of spring practice and team drills. And he kind of took that to heart. He got a lot better. He looked pretty good in the spring game. I think getting those reps for Muhammad this spring was huge. I'm not going to put too much stock into any one practice or the spring game, but just getting those reps and being able to...
I think he played himself into the 2D.
Could be, yeah. I mean, do you think he's in the top group past Austin Jordan right now?
Jordan,
you think you said that. Yeah.
I think Jordan is your number 2 star. I think Muhammad's one of the second corners.
What about Gilbo?
I'm not sure what Gilbo's kind of house money at this point because he can play anything. So I'm not going to be surprised if Gilbo ends up playing some safety.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think Gilbo, because he's going to be healthy for summer workouts. If he shows out in fall camp, I have a hard time keeping him off the field consistently. I mean, he's really good. He's versatile.
This is where the strength of your defense is going to be in the secondary. We have so many players who don't know what to do with everybody. But I think that's also a call that they liked to rotate a lot last year. Remember, that was driving people crazy was they would rotate and then things would go bad. But now they should be able to rotate and not see as much of a drop-off.
Okay, then let me put it this way, and then this is the last thing I have for corner. I thought that Jamison did do pretty well for most of last season. Started to slide a little bit in the second half of Big 12 play. I think the Oklahoma State game was kind of where it turned bad for him.
If only he had gotten that pick 6 on Bryce Young. It was right there.
Yeah. Who do you think is like technique-wise? I think it was good to have Jamison play as much press and bail as he did. About 5-7 yards deep last season. About 7 to 10 actually for most of the season. Who do you think technique-wise is going to fit best there? Because each of these guys, Terrence Brooks, he doesn't have the quickest hips.
Malik Muhammad has the best hips on the team.
Yeah,
he's the best just go guy. I think they're going to play a lot of bump and run, a lot of jam. If they play, if it's Terrence Brooks and Ryan Watts, they're going to use a lot of their strength that way to reroute guys and things like that, which is fine. This is also why I think Brooks, he could get a look at safety because, as you say, doesn't have the best hips, but you don't need them at safety. Watts, I think Watts and Brooks at the next level are both going to play safety. So if you gave a look there now, it's not going to hurt you. Malik Muhammad certainly, I think, will play corner at the next level. But I think, like, as far as coverage, I would go Holmes and Malik, probably as far as just pure cover guys. As far as best all-around corners, I think Watts and Brooks. My thing with Muhammad is I'm still not sure he's as strong as you might want to be for a guy who might need to make a lot of tackles if they throw a lot of balls behind the line of scrimmage. You need guys like Barron who just have a real nose for the ball. And
you're right.
Some of the plays Barron was making in that TCU game, I was like, wow.
His production last season was incredible. He led. I posted this a million times, or some version of this stat a million times now, but I think him not getting all Big 12 last season was absolute robbery, first of all.
And you see why Dan Lanning was trying to poach him to Oregon.
he's just so damn good. And I know it was his first like full season of like getting starting reps game in and game out, but yeah, I mean he led all Power 5 defensive backs in defensive stops last season, man. That's crazy. Like his ability to read the football and react is just insane. So yeah, a lot of good things to say about Barron. I guess we can wrap this up with the safeties. I think you mentioned it, Thompson, Catalan, your starters heading into the fall. We mentioned Derek Williams can probably push during the summer and the fall for a spot on the 2 deep. There's at least one spot on the 2 deep, and that's where I'll wrap up this whole talk on defense. Is that last spot? Do you think it goes to a guy like Michael Taft? Do you think Larry Turner Gooden pushes for it? B.J. Allen, Keaton Crawford? What are you thinking there?
I think Crawford and Allen will duke it out there. I think Allen, who's one thing I like about Allen, and I've liked him for a long time, is Allen has a nose for turnovers, and we need those. So that's why I think he could make a push. Turner Gooden, I think, will play some. I think they'll all play some.
Yeah.
I think the Wyoming and Rice games are going to be very important for everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to get as many reps as they can. Pull your starters by halftime if you can.
Anyway, you got anything else on the defense?
No, I think it should be. In some ways, it won't be as good. I don't know if the run defense will be as good. I think it will still be good. I think the pass rush has potential to be better. I think turnovers has potential to be better, and that's will give the offense more opportunities. And for that, I think that will make Texas a more proficient scoring offense. So I think this defense has enough talent, certainly, to win the Big 12 and to push for the playoff. But it's all going to come down to the Alabama game. I think there's 2 ways you can look at the season, but they all come down to Alabama. If you beat Alabama, Texas should be pushing for one of those Final 4 spots. If you lose to Alabama, but you keep it close, they should probably still win the Big 12. But that's my thought.
Yeah.
If you beat Alabama, but you lose to like BYU and Oklahoma, we're gonna need to talk.
Yeah.
And like that, go. If you go to Tuscaloosa, I don't know how many games Nick Saban has lost in Tuscaloosa, but I don't think. I mean, he has more first round picks than losses at this point. So that tells you he hasn't lost much. Period. And he certainly has. Some of those losses have been in playoff games, neutral site areas, and things like that. So he doesn't lose much at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And it's still crazy to think that Texas has a huge winning record against Alabama, but I think this will be a big thing for this season. Not that Texas will be as good as the 2019 LSU team, but I think beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa can give the team that type of confidence to go on a big run, because now they know, like, okay, we can do this. Not we were close, we can do this. Because there's no game that's going to be tougher than prime time in Tuscaloosa when Nick Saban is coming back angry after not getting in the playoffs and not getting in the SEC championship game. That's not he's not happy about those types of things. So,
I mean, it's going to be a really interesting Alabama team, like you said. I mean, just the change in offensive style.
And if Tyler Buckner is the starter, you definitely need to win that game.
Good, yeah. I mean, yeah. That's when you really wish you had a good edge rusher. God knows. Maybe it's a big coming out party for Ant Hill. Hopefully.
Yep.
Let him know. Let him know in the SEC who he is. Really quick, let's. We don't have to spend much time on this. Special teams. Ryan Sanborn's the punter. We just landed the number 1 ranked punter in the nation in the 2024 class in the 247 Sports Composite. Michael Kern. So
way to go, Jeff Banks.
Yeah, so it looks like punting game's taken care of for the foreseeable future, which is nice. Kicking game. You think Will Stone or Bert Auburn?
Auburn.
That's kind of what I was thinking. But it's nice that there's 2 options there. I just don't get why everyone's so critical of Bert.
because when he kicks the ball, it's not pretty. Even when it goes in, it's just like, What with Will Stone, it looks like it's supposed. It doesn't always go in, but it's kind of like you're a big basketball fan, right? So, like Lamar Odom, he always had everything he always did was kind of perfect. He kind of looked the part and everything, like super. But he was never like as good as other people who would like Sean Marion, who had the ugliest jump shot, but it was always going in. So I think that, and Bert Auburn kind of does. I'd go with Auburn unless Will Stone takes it from him. But for now, I'm fine with Bert.
Same.
So let's have A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington and Isaiah Nair and John Tate Cook and Cedric Baxter score enough touchdowns and Jonathan Brooks so that we don't have to worry about kicking field goals and just do extra points.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the special teams unit's going to be a strength this year. I just think that we have too many playmakers. We have too many options in the return game as well. So special teams should be a pretty solidified unit. Jeff Banks, I think, has that locked down. All right. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I think we did a good job covering. Yeah, I think that about does it for us here. Unless, Tarik, you got anything else?
Nope. Right. We will see you next week and hook 'em.
Yeah. Yep. Got some summer coverage coming up here soon. Summer workouts just around the corner. So anyway, for Tarik LaCour, Andrew Miller, Hook'emHeadlines.com. That's pretty much it. Hook 'em.